She thought she'd escaped him, built a new life, raised their triplets alone. But when the most dangerous man in the Korean underworld moves into the apartment next door, some secrets can't stay hidden. He abandoned her pregnant. Now fate has trapped them side by side. And when he hears his children cry through the walls, the empire he built on silence begins to crumble. This is the story of a love that survived betrayal, a man who never knew he was a father, and 3 innocent souls who will change everything. Welcome to the impossible return. She heard him before she saw him. The footsteps in the hallway were too deliberate, too controlled. Expensive shoes on cheap carpet. The kind of sound that didn't belong in this neighborhood where single mothers raised children and dreams died quietly. Arya pressed her ear against the door, heart hammering against ribs that remembered how to break. 5 months. 5 months of peace. 5 months of building a life from the ruins he left behind. 3 tiny heartbeats sleeping in the nursery. 3 reasons to never look back. The footsteps stopped, right outside her door. She held her breath, counting seconds like prayers. 1, 2, 3. The same way she counted her baby's fingers when they were born. The same way she counted the days after he disappeared, leaving nothing but a cold bed and a positive pregnancy test. Then, the footsteps moved. To the apartment next door. No, not next door. Anywhere but there. The sound of a key turning, a door opening, closing. Silence heavier than the city's noise pressing against her windows. Arya's hands shook as she backed away, her mind refusing what her instincts already knew. Min-jun Kim. The man who taught her what love felt like. The man who taught her what abandonment tasted like. The Korean mafia heir who chose his empire over her heart. He was here, next door. Separated by nothing but drywall and destiny's cruel sense of humor. In the nursery, one of the triplets whimpered. Mira, always the sensitive one, as if she could feel her mother's fear bleeding through the walls. Arya moved on autopilot, lifting her daughter, breathing in that perfect baby scent that reminded her why she survived. Sweetheart, Mama's here. Mama's always here. Unlike some people. She rocked Mira gently, staring at the wall that separated her new life from her worst nightmare. The wall was thin, too thin. Sound carried in this building. Every cry, every laugh, every moment of the life he didn't know existed. 3 babies, his babies. 5 months old with his dark eyes and her stubborn chin. 3 pieces of a man who walked away before he knew they were coming. The apartment next door was silent now. But silence, she'd learned, was just another kind of violence. The kind that suffocated. The kind that made you forget how to breathe. Arya kissed Mira's forehead and made a promise to herself and to the 3 souls sleeping in her care. He would never know. She would keep them safe. She would keep them secret. Some doors were meant to stay closed, even when fate moved in next door. Even when the walls were thin enough to hear a heart breaking on both sides. Especially then. Min-jun stood in the empty apartment and felt nothing. That was the point. Feeling was a luxury men like him couldn't afford. Feeling got you killed in his world. Feeling made you weak. He'd chosen this building for its anonymity, a place where a man could disappear into ordinariness, where his family's enemies wouldn't think to look. A temporary hideout while the territory wars raged in the shadows of the city. His phone buzzed, a message from his second-in-command, 3 words that meant nothing and everything in their world. The Eagle landed. Translation: another rival silenced, another threat eliminated, another day in the empire his father built and expected him to expand. Min-jun deleted the message and walked through the sparse apartment. 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, a kitchen he'd never use. It was perfect in its emptiness, like his life, like the space where his heart used to be, before her. He stopped that thought before it could take root. Thinking about Arya was like drinking poison slowly, sweet at first, deadly by the end. He'd made his choice 6 months ago. Walked away before she could become a target. Before his world could destroy the only pure thing he'd ever touched. Better she hate him than mourn him. That's what he told himself every night when sleep wouldn't come. When he remembered how she looked at him like he was worth saving. Like the blood on his hands could wash clean. She was better off, safer, alive, and he was what he'd always been, his father's son, the heir to an empire built on fear. Then he heard it. A cry. Soft. Muffled by walls but unmistakable. A baby. Min-jun froze, every instinct sharpening. Babies didn't cry in safe houses. Babies meant families. Families meant complications. He moved to the wall, pressing his palm against it, feeling the vibration of life on the other side. Another cry joined the first. Different pitch, different rhythm. 2 babies? No. Wait. A third voice. Softer. Weaker. 3 babies. Triplets, probably. Someone next door was raising triplets in an apartment barely bigger than his. He pulled his hand back like the wall burned him. This was supposed to be simple, anonymous, a place to hide until the war ended. Not a building full of civilian lives. Not a place where children cried through walls. The crying stopped. He heard a woman's voice now. Low. Soothing. Singing something he couldn't quite make out. A lullaby in a language that felt familiar but distant. Portuguese? No. Something else. The voice wrapped around him like a memory he couldn't place. Soft but strong. Tired but unbroken. The kind of voice that had seen hell and chosen to sing anyway. He should leave. Find another place. Somewhere without children. Somewhere without that voice making him feel things he'd buried 6 months ago. But his feet wouldn't move. And the woman kept singing. And for the first time in half a year, Minjun Kim felt something other than nothing. He felt curious. And curiosity in his world was just another word for danger. 3 days. 3 days of listening to life happen through the walls. 3 days of pretending he didn't memorize the rhythm of those babies crying, the pattern of their mother's footsteps, the sound of her exhaustion bleeding through in every lullaby. Minjun told himself it was surveillance. That's what he did. Observed, calculated. Stayed 3 steps ahead of everyone. But surveillance didn't explain why he held his breath when the crying stopped, why he relaxed when he heard her voice soothing them back to sleep, why he found himself standing by the wall at 2 a.m, listening to a stranger raise children alone. Day 4, he saw her. Not intentionally. He was leaving for a meeting with his father's enforcers when she stepped into the hallway, baby carrier in each hand, diaper bag sliding off her shoulder, exhaustion carved into every line of her body. She was beautiful in the way tired mothers are beautiful. Real. Unpolished. Strong in ways that had nothing to do with violence. And familiar. Too familiar. Minjun's world tilted, stopped, shattered. No. Not possible. Arya. She looked up, met his eyes, and turned to stone. The baby carrier shook in her hands. Her face went pale, then red, then pale again. Every emotion he'd never let himself feel crashed through her expression in seconds. Shock, fear, rage, something that looked like grief. Neither of them moved. The hallway stretched between them like an ocean, like a grave. He opened his mouth, closed it. Every word he'd practiced for 6 months disappeared. Every explanation, every apology, every lie. One of the babies made a sound, a happy gurgle, oblivious to the world crumbling around them. Arya's eyes hardened. That's when he saw it. The same look she gave him the morning he left. When she woke up alone. When she realized he was gone. The look that said, "I loved you and you destroyed me." She turned toward her door, movements jerky, desperate. Running. Always running from him now. "Arya, don't." Her voice cracked like glass. "Don't say my name, don't say anything. I didn't know you lived. I don't care what you know." She fumbled with her keys, babies bouncing in their carriers. "I don't care why you're here. Just stay away from us." Us. The word hit him like a bullet. He looked at the carriers. Really looked. 2 babies visible, both with dark hair. Tiny fists waving at nothing. "How many?" 3. She cut him off, vicious, protective. "I have 3 children, and they're none of your business." 3. Triplets. 5 months old based on their size. Math was simple, brutal. 5 months old, 6 months since he left. No. "Arya!" She finally got the door open, shoving inside with the carriers, the diaper bag, all of it. But before she could slam the door, she turned back. Looked at him with eyes that held entire lifetimes of pain. "You left me pregnant and alone. You don't get to be curious now. You don't get to be anything." The door slammed, the lock clicked. Final. Minjun stood in the empty hallway, his empire crumbling around him in ways territory wars never could. 3 babies, 5 months old. His. The words screamed in his head, in his chest, in every part of him he thought he'd killed. His children. He'd walked away from her to keep her safe, and left her to raise his children alone. The irony tasted like blood. Minjun didn't sleep. Sleep required peace, and peace was a luxury dead men couldn't afford. That's what he was now. Dead. The man who walked away from Arya 6 months ago died the moment he saw those baby carriers in her hands. What remained was something worse. A father who abandoned his children. A coward dressed in expensive suits pretending to be dangerous. He sat on the floor of his empty apartment, back against the wall that separated him from everything he'd destroyed. 2 a.m. The building was quiet except for the sound bleeding through from her side. Crying, one of the babies. He pressed his palm against the wall, feeling the vibration of tiny lungs demanding attention. Demanding love. Getting it, probably. Because Arya was everything he wasn't. Good. Present. Capable of love without conditions. Her footsteps. Soft. Tired. The particular shuffle of someone who'd woken up for the 1,000th time and would wake up 1,000 more without complaint. Her voice came through the wall. Gentle. Singing something in a language he didn't recognize but felt in his chest anyway. Shh, baby girl. Mama's here. Always here. Always. The word he never learned to say. The promise he never learned to keep. Minjun closed his eyes and let himself do something he'd forbidden for 6 months. He remembered. Her laugh. The way she looked at him like he was more than his father's legacy. The morning she told him she loved him, and he believed for exactly 3 seconds that he could be someone worth loving. Then his father called. Told him the enemies were circling. That anyone close to him would become a target. That love was a weapon people would use to destroy him. So he left. Walked out while she slept. Disappeared into the empire that birthed him. Told himself it was mercy. What a lie that was. The crying stopped. Her voice continued, softer now. A lullaby about stars and safety and all the things his world had never known. He wanted to hate her for being strong enough to do this alone. For not needing him. For building a life from the ruins he left behind. But hate required energy he didn't have anymore. His phone buzzed. A message from his father. Meeting tomorrow. The Italians are pushing into our territory. We push back. Bring your focus. Focus. As if he could focus on territory wars when his children were crying 10 feet away. Minjun deleted the message and made a decision that would either save him or destroy everything. He wasn't leaving this building. Not until he fixed what he'd broken. Not until he found a way to be what he'd never been. Present. The singing stopped. Silence settled like snow. Heavy. Complete. He imagined her on the other side of the wall, probably rocking one of the babies back to sleep. Probably exhausted. Probably cursing his name. She had every right. But rights didn't matter in his world. Only actions did. And tomorrow he would act, even if she hated him for it. Especially if she hated him for it. Because hate meant she still felt something. And something was better than the nothing he'd been living with for 6 months. The next morning, Minjun did something he'd never done before. He bought groceries, real groceries, vegetables, fruit, bread. The kind of food normal people ate when they weren't running empires built on blood. He also bought diapers. 3 packs. Different sizes because he had no idea what size 5-month-old triplets needed. Formula, bottles, baby wipes. Everything the internet said new parents needed, multiplied by 3. The cashier looked at him like he was insane. A man in a $3,000 suit buying enough baby supplies for a small army. Big family? She asked, scanning items with mechanical efficiency. Yes, he said. The word felt foreign, true, terrifying. He returned to the building carrying bags that felt heavier than any weapon he'd ever held. Stood outside Arya's door. Raised his hand to knock. Stopped. What was he doing? She told him to stay away. She told him he had no right to their lives. She was right. But when had being right ever stopped him from doing what needed to be done? He knocked. 3 times. Firm. Silence. Then footsteps. Slow. Reluctant. The door opened exactly 3 inches. Arya's face appeared in the gap, exhaustion and fury competing for dominance in her expression. I told you. I know what you told me. He kept his voice low. Careful. I'm not here to argue. I'm here to leave these. He held up the bags. She looked at them like they were explosives. I don't want your money. It's not money, it's diapers. Formula, food, things you need. I have everything I need. Do you? He didn't mean it as a challenge, but her eyes flashed anyway. I've managed for 5 months without you. I'll manage for the next 18 years. I don't doubt that. And he didn't. She was the strongest person he'd ever met. But you shouldn't have to. Should have thought about that before you disappeared. Fair, true, devastating. One of the babies cried inside the apartment, then another, a symphony of need that made Arya's jaw tighten. I have to go. Let me help. No. Arya, you don't get to help. Her voice cracked, raw with months of buried pain. You don't get to show up with groceries and diapers and pretend that makes up for anything. You left me. You left them. You don't get to be the hero now. A third baby joined the crying, all three now, demanding attention, demanding their mother. Arya's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall, pride and exhaustion warring in every line of her body. Take the bags or don't, Minjun said quietly. I'll leave them here either way. He set the groceries down, turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, I didn't know you were pregnant. If I had known, you still would have left. She said it with certainty, with knowledge earned through pain. Your empire mattered more than me. Children wouldn't have changed that. She was wrong, but he had no way to prove it. Not yet. Maybe, he said. But I'm here now, and I'm not leaving again. You don't have a choice. This is my home, my life, my children. Our children. The words hung in the air between them like a grenade with the pin pulled. Arya's face went white, then red, then something beyond rage. You have no right. I have every right. Biologically, legally, morally questionable, I'll grant you, but... The door slammed in his face. He heard her on the other side, breathing hard, probably fighting the urge to scream or cry or both. The babies were still crying, and Minjun stood in the hallway realizing he'd just declared war on the only person who'd ever made him want to be better. This was going to be harder than taking over the East Coast. Days passed like a siege. Minjun didn't push, didn't knock again, didn't do anything except exist in the apartment next door and listen to the life he'd created but didn't deserve. He learned their rhythms. The triplets woke at 6. Arya fed them one at a time, singing those soft lullabies between bottles. By 8, she'd have them dressed and settled. By 9, she was working. He could hear her on conference calls, professional voice masking exhaustion, making deals while babies cooed in the background. She was building a business, raising triplets, surviving, all without him. It should have made leaving easier. Proof she didn't need him. Proof his presence would only complicate her success. But it didn't. Because every night, he heard her cry. Soft. Muffled. The sound of someone who'd learned to grieve silently so the children wouldn't hear. The sound of a woman carrying weight that should have been shared. That was his doing. His father called daily, demanding updates on the territory situation. Demanding Minjun's return to the family business. Demanding he stop hiding in some anonymous building and remember who he was. Minjun ignored most of the calls. The ones he answered, he lied through. Handling it. Give me time. The situation is delicate. His father didn't need to know the situation was 3 5-month-old babies and a woman who hated him for excellent reasons. On day 7, everything changed. Minjun was coming back from a meeting with his lieutenants, unavoidable, unfortunately, when he heard the screaming. Not the babies. Arya. He ran, dropped his phone, his keys, everything. Burst through his door and pounded on hers. Arya, what's wrong? More screaming, then crying, multiple voices overlapping in panic. He didn't think, didn't ask permission, used his shoulder against the door, once, twice. The cheap lock gave way on the 3rd hit. He crashed into her apartment and froze. Arya was on the floor, one baby in her arms, 2 more in bouncy seats beside her, all 3 wailing. Her face was sheet white, tears streaming, eyes wild with terror. She won't breathe, Arya sobbed. She's not breathing right. Something's wrong. Oh God, something's wrong. Minjun's training kicked in. The same training that kept him alive in his father's world. Assess, act, no hesitation. He knelt beside her, looked at the baby in her arms. Tiny, fragile, lips tinged blue. Breathing, but shallow. Wrong. Which hospital? I called 911, they said 15 minutes, but she doesn't have 15 minutes. My car, now. He scooped up the other 2 babies, surprisingly natural motion, like his body knew what his mind hadn't learned, and headed for the door. Arya grabbed the diaper bag with shaking hands, still holding the sick baby against her chest. They ran. His car was illegal parked, black SUV with tinted windows, and plates that meant police didn't ask questions. He buckled the 2 healthy babies into car seats he didn't remember installing, but must have at some point in the last week. Muscle memory from a life he didn't remember preparing for. Arya climbed in back with the sick one. Minjun drove. Not to the nearest hospital. To the private medical facility his family owned. The place where doctors didn't ask questions and treated whoever he brought without paperwork or waiting rooms. He made calls while driving. 3 words that moved mountains in his world. I need help. By the time they arrived, a pediatric team was waiting. They took the baby from Arya's arms. She fought at first, instinct demanding she hold on, but Minjun's hand on her shoulder, gentle, grounding, helped her let go. They'll save her, I promise. Arya looked at him with eyes that held every emotion possible. Terror, gratitude, hatred, hope. You promise? I promise. It was the first promise he'd made to her in 6 months. He intended to keep it, even if it cost him everything. The waiting room was too white, too clean, too much like every place Minjun had waited for news about people who didn't survive. But this was different. This was his daughter. His. The word still felt foreign, real, undeniable now. Arya sat beside him, silent, holding the other 2 babies like lifelines. They'd calmed down, probably sensing their mother's desperate need for them to be okay, to be safe. The girl, he didn't even know her name, slept against Arya's shoulder, tiny fist curled against her mother's collarbone. The boy, his son, God, his son, watched Minjun with dark eyes that looked too much like his own. Minjun wanted to say something, anything. But what words existed for this? I'm sorry, didn't cover abandonment. I love you, was a lie he'd buried 6 months ago. I'll fix this, was arrogant when a 5-month-old was fighting to breathe in a room he couldn't enter. So he sat in silence and waited, like he'd waited for his mother to survive childbirth. She hadn't. Like he'd waited for his brother to survive a bullet meant for their father. He hadn't. Like he'd waited for Arya to forgive him for leaving. She wouldn't. Pattern recognition was a gift in his line of work, a curse everywhere else. Minutes stretched into hours. The hospital hummed around them with that peculiar energy of a place where life and death negotiated constantly. Nurses passed, doctors consulted, machines beeped their mechanical reassurances, and Arya sat perfectly still, breathing in rhythm with the babies in her arms, her entire world condensed to the children she held and the one she couldn't. Minjun studied her in the harsh fluorescent light, really looked at her for the first time since the hallway encounter. She'd changed. Not just physically, though motherhood had carved new angles into her face, new strength into the set of her jaw. She'd changed in ways that made him ache. She looked like someone who'd survived a war, because she had. The war he'd started when he walked away. What are their names? His voice came out rougher than intended. Arya didn't look at him, kept her eyes on the babies. Why do you care? Because they're mine. Biologically, that's all. Arya. Mira. She cut him off, voice flat, defeated. The one fighting in there. Her name is Mira. It means miracle in Sanskrit, because that's what she was. What they all were. 3 heartbeats when I thought I'd never feel anything again. Minjun's chest tightened. And the others? This is Zara. She gestured to the sleeping girl. It means blooming flower. And this? She looked down at the boy, watching Minjun with unsettling intensity. Is Kai. Ocean in Hawaiian, because he's deep. Even at 5 months old, he watches everything. Understands more than he should. 3 names. 3 identities. 3 entire human beings he'd missed the creation of. They're beautiful names. I didn't choose them for you to approve. I know. Silence settled again. Heavy. Breathing. The boy, Kai, reached out suddenly, tiny hand grasping at air. Instinct made Minjun move, extending his finger. The baby's hand closed around it with surprising strength. Arya tensed but didn't pull him away. He does that, she said quietly. Reaches for things. Holds on tight. Doesn't let go easily. Like his mother. She finally looked at him then. Really looked. Eyes full of everything she'd never said. Everything he'd never let her say. I let go of you. Did you? I had to. You made sure of it. Before he could respond, before he could figure out what response even existed for that truth. A doctor emerged, young, competent. One of the best pediatric specialists on the East Coast, because Minjun's family paid for the best. She's stable. Arya's sob was physical, relief and terror and exhaustion pouring out in one sound that broke something fundamental in Minjun's chest. He stood moving into the space between the doctor and his... What were they? His family? What happened? His voice carried all the authority that made grown men nervous. The doctor, to his credit, didn't flinch. Respiratory infection. Common in infants, especially multiples. Her immune system is still developing, and the infection took hold quickly. We've started her on antibiotics, and she's responding well. We'd like to keep her overnight for monitoring, possibly 48 hours depending on her response to treatment. Whatever she needs, Minjun said. Whatever equipment, specialists, anything. We have everything required. She's in excellent hands. I want the best. You already have it. The doctor's tone held professional pride. Dr. Sarah Chen is overseeing her care personally. She's the top pediatric pulmonologist in the state. Insurance information. A nurse appeared with a tablet. Not necessary. Minjun's voice carried the weight of his world. The voice that made people not ask questions. Send the bill directly to me, all of it, and make sure she has a private room. With space for her mother and siblings, whatever they need. The nurse glanced at the doctor, who nodded. Arya stood, still holding Zara and Kai. Can I see her? Of course. Follow me. She started to follow, then stopped. Turned back to Minjun. Their eyes met. Entire conversations happening in silence. Thank you. This is my fault. No, it's not. If I'd been there. Don't. I should have. Just. Don't. Thank you, she whispered out loud. Don't thank me. This is my fault. How is her being sick your fault? Arya's exhaustion made her blunt. You didn't give her a respiratory infection. You weren't even there. The last part landed like it was meant to. Sharp. Cutting. Exactly. If I'd been there from the beginning, maybe... Stop. Arya's voice sharpened. You don't get to take credit for this. You don't get to be the savior. You happened to be there when I needed help. That's all. Is it? She didn't answer. Just adjusted her grip on the babies and followed the doctor down the hallway. Minjun stood alone in the white room and felt his empire crack. His phone buzzed. His father. Again. He'd been ignoring the calls for hours. But standing in that hospital, watching Arya disappear with their children, Minjun realized something fundamental had shifted. He couldn't run from this. Not anymore. He answered. Where are you? His father's voice was ice wrapped in silk. Dangerous in its calm. Hospital. Silence. Then, yours or someone else's? Does it matter? It does when the Italians are making moves on our territory and my heir is playing doctor instead of protecting what's ours. I'm protecting what's mine. Cryptic doesn't suit you, Minjun. Speak clearly. How did he explain? How did he tell his father, the man who'd taught him that family was empire and empire was everything, that he'd just discovered a different kind of family? Minjun walked to the window, looked out at the city his family had controlled for 3 generations. All those lights, all those lives, all that power. And none of it mattered as much as 3 5-month-old babies he'd just met. I have children, 3 of them. They're 5 months old, and one of them almost died tonight. The silence on the other end was louder than gunfire. Longer than any silence should be. When his father finally spoke, his voice had changed. Become something Minjun had heard before only when discussing traitors. You have what? You heard me. With who? Arya. The woman I was seeing before I told you to end it. His father's voice was precise, surgical. Before I explained that love makes you weak. Before you were smart enough to walk away. I walked away while she was pregnant. I didn't know. And now you do. Calculation hummed through the phone line. What do you plan to do about it? Be a father. His father laughed. Actually laughed. The sound was knives wrapped in velvet. You think it's that simple? You think you can be both? Father and heir? Family man and empire builder? Other men manage. Other men aren't you. Other men don't carry what you carry. The weight of 3 generations. The responsibility of thousands who depend on our protection. Our strength. Our unwavering focus. I can do both. No. His father's voice went flat, final. You can't. I've seen men try. Watched them fail. Watched their families become targets. Watched their children buried because they thought love was stronger than our enemies' hate. So what are you saying? I'm saying choose. Right now. This moment. Choose. Minjun looked down the hallway where Arya had disappeared with their children. Thought about Mira fighting to breathe. About Kai's tiny hand gripping his finger. About Zara sleeping peacefully, unaware of the war being waged over her existence. Thought about the promise he'd made to save them. Thought about all the promises he'd broken before. I choose them. His father's laugh was bitter, disappointed, final. You'll regret that. Love doesn't last. Empire does. Blood does. Power is the only thing that survives, and you're throwing it away for a woman who hates you and children who'll never understand what you sacrificed. They are my blood. No. His father's voice was granite. I am your blood. This organization is your blood. The men who've died for our name are your blood. Some woman and her bastards. Minjun ended the call. His hands shook. He'd just declared war on his own father, on the empire that raised him, on everything he'd ever known. For a woman who hated him and 3 children who didn't know he existed, the stupidity was staggering. The rightness was undeniable. He walked down the hallway, following the path Arya took, and found the room. Through the window he could see her, sitting beside a tiny hospital crib, Zara in her arms, Kai beside her in a portable seat someone must have brought, and Mira in the crib with wires and monitors turning her tiny body into a science experiment. Arya was crying again. Silent tears tracking down her face while she held Zara and kept one hand on Mira's leg through the crib bars, maintaining contact, letting her daughter know she wasn't alone, the way Arya had been alone for 6 months. Minjun pushed open the door quietly. She looked up, surprised, defensive, exhausted. I thought you'd leave, she said. No. Your empire? Can wait. Your father. Made his choice. I made mine. Arya stared at him like he was speaking a language she didn't understand. What does that mean? It means I'm not leaving. Not the hospital. Not your life. Not their lives. Whatever you need. However long it takes. I'm here. You can't just decide that. I already have. Your family won't accept it. My family, Minjun said carefully, moving into the room, doesn't get a vote anymore. She shook her head. Disbelief, and something that looked dangerously like hope fighting for dominance in her expression. You don't understand what you're saying. You can't just walk away from what you are, from who you are. Watch me. Minjun, what are their birthdays? He cut her off. What time were they born? Did you have a C-section or natural birth? Were you alone? Did someone hold your hand? Did you scream? Did you cry? Did you think about me? Arya's face crumpled. Don't. I need to know. Everything I missed, every moment, every... August 7th, 2:43 in the morning. C-section because Mira was breech. I was alone because everyone I knew lived 3,000 miles away, and the man I loved had disappeared. Yes, I thought about you. I thought about you every second. I hated you every second. And when they put them on my chest, all 3 of them, I forgave you for exactly 10 seconds because they were perfect. Then I hated you again for missing it. The words hit like bullets, each one finding its mark. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back 6 months. Sorry doesn't change the nights I cried myself to sleep wondering if I'd survive this. Sorry doesn't... She stopped, took a breath, looked at Mira in the crib. Sorry doesn't matter anymore. What matters is them. Only them. I know. Do you? She looked at him with eyes that had learned to see through lies. Because being a father isn't about showing up when it's dramatic. It's about 3 a.m. feedings, diaper changes, endless crying. It's about sacrifice without glory, presence without applause. It's about being there when it's boring, when it's hard, when it's thankless. I know. You don't. But you will. Because if you're serious about this, you're going to learn exactly how hard it is. And when you do, when the reality sets in, you'll leave again. Men like you always do. Men like me, men who think love is enough. It's not. Love is the beginning, the easy part. Everything after is work. Before Minjun could respond, Kai made a sound, a little whimper that immediately drew Arya's attention. She shifted Zara carefully, reaching for a bottle someone had left on the side table. Kai's whimper turned into a cry. Then Mira, sensing her brother's distress, joined in with a weak cry of her own. Arya's face tightened. Trying to feed Kai while holding Zara while keeping contact with Mira was geometry that didn't work. "Let me," Minjun said. "No. Let me help. Please." She hesitated, every instinct probably screaming to refuse, to keep him away from the children he'd abandoned, but exhaustion won. "Zara," she said. "Hold Zara. Support her head. Don't just be gentle." Minjun moved carefully, accepting the sleeping baby like she was made of glass. She was so small, so impossibly small. Her entire body fit in his forearms. She made a little sound, nestled against his chest, and went back to sleep. His daughter. The weight was nothing. The responsibility was everything. He stood perfectly still while Arya fed Kai, while Mira's monitors beeped their reassurance, while the hospital hummed around them with the sound of life continuing despite everything. This was it. This was what he'd chosen. Not empire, not power, not the legacy his father had built. This. 3 tiny humans who didn't know his name but carried his DNA. A woman who hated him for excellent reasons. A future that looked nothing like the one he'd planned. And for the first time in his life, Minjun Kim felt something he'd never felt in his father's empire. He felt right. They stayed like that for hours, taking turns holding babies. Watching Mira breathe through machines, not talking much, not needing to. Around midnight, Arya finally fell asleep in the chair, Kai against her shoulder. The baby slept too, both of them exhausted beyond measure. Minjun held Zara and watched them. His family. The word still felt foreign but increasingly real. His phone buzzed. Not his father this time. His second in command. The man who'd served his family for 20 years. Who'd taught Minjun half of what he knew about survival. He answered quietly, careful not to wake Arya. "Boss, we have a problem." "What kind?" "The kind where someone just sent a message to your apartment building?" "Left a package outside your door." Minjun's blood went cold. "What kind of package?" "The kind that doesn't tick but should worry you anyway. Bomb squad is on site. They're evacuating the building." No. They'd found him. His father's enemies. Or worse, his father himself, proving a point about the cost of choosing wrong. And they knew exactly where to hit him. "Get everyone out of that building, now, every floor, every apartment." "Already done, but boss. Whoever left this knew which apartment was yours, knew you were there, or knew someone was there you cared about." The message was clear. They could reach him. They could reach anyone near him, including Arya, including the babies. "Status?" His voice was ice. Combat mode, the part of him his father had trained. "Bomb squad says it's clean, not explosive. But there's a note." "What does it say?" "Blood for blood. Empire for empire. Choose wisely." Minjun closed his eyes, felt the baby in his arms, heard Arya's breathing. Saw his future crumbling before it could begin. Who sent it? Signature matches the Italians. But boss. The Italians wouldn't know about that apartment. Wouldn't know you were there. Someone told them. Someone. His father. Making a point. Proving that choosing family meant painting a target on their backs. "Get a team on that building. 24-hour protection. No one gets in without clearance." "Boss, if we do that, we expose..." "I don't care what we expose. Do it." He ended the call and looked at Arya. Still sleeping. Still peaceful. Still unaware that his world had just invaded hers. He should leave. Walk away now. Disappear before they connected her to him. Before his enemies learned about the children. It was the smart play, the safe play, the play that would keep them alive. But Minjun had made a promise. Not to leave. Not to abandon them again. And he'd just told his father he chose them. Choices had consequences. He just hadn't expected them to come this fast. Arya stirred, opened her eyes. Saw his face. What's wrong? He wanted to lie. To protect her from the truth for just a few more hours. But she deserved better than lies. Someone left a package at the apartment building. They evacuated everyone. It wasn't a bomb, but... She was on her feet instantly. Kai against her shoulder, eyes wild. "What did you bring to my home?" Her voice was whisper quiet, the kind of quiet that preceded screaming. "Nothing, I swear, I was careful." "Then why are they evacuating my building?" "Because someone knows I'm there, and they know." He looked at the babies. They know how to hurt me now. Arya's face went through every stage of grief in 3 seconds. Shock, denial, anger, acceptance, rage. Get out. Arya, get out! Her voice rose. Nurses looked through the window. You brought your war to our home. You put my children in danger. I didn't know they'd... You should have known. That's what your world does. It destroys everything it touches. Everyone who gets close to you ends up dead or running or... She stopped, looked at Mira in the crib, at Zara in his arms, at Kai against her shoulder, or raising your children alone wondering when the bullet comes. I won't let anything happen to you, to them. I swear. Your promises mean nothing. You promised you'd never leave. You did. You promised this was different. It wasn't. Now you're promising protection while your enemies leave bombs at our door? It wasn't a bomb. It was a message. What's the difference? Tears streamed down her face. The message is clear. Being near you means dying. I won't let them die because of you. I won't... Her voice broke. Kai started crying, sensitive to his mother's distress. Arya held him tighter, rocking, trying to calm down while her world imploded. Minjun wanted to reach for her, to promise impossible things, to fix what couldn't be fixed. But she was right. She was always right. His world destroyed everything it touched. And he'd just touched the only things that mattered. I'll have security on the building, he said quietly. 24 hours. No one gets near you or the children without... I don't want your security. I want you gone. Arya... Leave! A nurse entered. I'm sorry, but you're disturbing other patients. I'll have to ask. I'm leaving. Minjun looked at Zara in his arms, his daughter. Sleeping peacefully, unaware her father was being exiled from her life before they'd even met. He handed her to Arya carefully. Their hands touched briefly. She pulled away like he burned. Go, she whispered. And don't come back. Ever. I'll move. Change my name. Disappear if I have to. But you stay away from us. You stay away from them. You hear me? He heard her. And for the second time in 6 months, Minjun Kim walked away from Arya. Only this time, he knew exactly what he was losing. He made it to the hallway before his phone rang again. His father. He answered. Did you get my message? His father's voice was satisfied. Victorious. That was you. That was a demonstration of what happens when you choose wrong. Your children are targets now. That woman is a target. Everyone you love is a weapon pointed at your heart. This is what I tried to save you from. By threatening them? By showing you the truth. You can't protect them and run this empire. You can't be a father and a king, so choose. Really choose this time. Minjun looked back at the room where Arya held their children, where Mira fought to breathe, where his family existed without him. I already chose. Then you're a fool, and fools die young in our world, along with everyone they love. His father hung up. Minjun stood in that hospital hallway and realized something terrible. He couldn't protect them by being close. His proximity made them targets. But he also couldn't protect them by walking away. His absence left them vulnerable. There was only one option, one play that might keep them safe. He'd have to end the war. All of it. The territory disputes, the rival families, the empire itself if necessary. Burn it all down so thoroughly that no one would have reason to come after them. And then, only then, maybe he could come back. Maybe. It was a long shot. Possibly impossible. Definitely suicidal. But it was all he had. Minjun Kim walked out of that hospital and made a choice that would either save his family or destroy everything. He was going to war. Against his father. Against the empire. Against everyone who dare threaten 3 5-month-old babies and their mother. And this time, he wouldn't stop until either they were safe or he was dead. There was no third option. Not anymore. To be continued in episode 2. When the empire comes for what he loves, Minjun must choose. Protect his children by disappearing again, or stand and fight the war that will consume them all. But Arya has her own plans, and 3 babies who deserve better than a father who brings danger to their door. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes survival means letting go. Unless there's a third option neither of them has seen yet. One that requires trust, sacrifice, and a deal with the devil himself. Next episode, The Devil's Bargain.